What up,
Good
people?
morning, yay!
Yeah.
I have so much to look at. I can't even handle it.
Oh
We
my
look
God,
like we're
so
on TV for
fun.
real.
Yeah, just so you guys know, because you can't see, we have 3 laptops and 3 phones
One,
all
two, three.
recording this, and
gosh.
we are so stoked to be here.
This is awesome.
We're so
So
stoked.
cool.
Cheers, guys.
Cheers! Do you guys have
Yay.
your coffee, have your beverage in hand?
Yeah.
Get your
Welcome.
coffee ready.
Welcome.
Make sure you guys say hi once you hop on.
Oh, right, you're not on here. Bloop, bloop.
Oh, yeah.
Guys, welcome.
Oh, here
Woo.
they're coming in.
Coming in hot.
So we want to wait for them, right? Is that right?
Nah.
Nah, just go.
No.
Let's get it
Yeah.
going.
All right. So guys, we're super excited. We got our special guest, Raya.
I'm so
Al-Hashmi,
honored
Raya
to
on
be
assignment.
here.
Yay.
And I think we just want to start with kind of talking about how Michaela and me met Raya. I was lucky enough, you probably wouldn't expect it with this whole big beard going on, but I did pursue a modeling career at one point in my life. That was back in 2016, and I started by reaching out to Raya because I knew she was kind of growing her business, and she was obviously Raya, awesome human being. Great energy, and I came to her with an idea, and we started with a photo shoot in my hometown, Newfields, with my beautiful GMC truck. And 2 weeks later, I had a modeling contract. So, needless to say,
Yeah, girl. Taking
So
those
cool.
photos.
Raya's got
Woo.
moves.
We had
And
a fun time.
Yeah.
The shirts came off. Your shirt came off.
we found a little toy gun in the next to the barn.
Oh,
Around,
yes.
I think there was an axe involved.
maybe.
Yes,
There
totally.
were axes
All the
involved,
things. Yeah,
all the
Sean
things.
was crushing it. It was
So
really fun.
that was how I met Raya, and 2 years later, here we are. So I feel
Aw.
honored to have you.
I know. Thank you. Such
Aw.
a pleasure.
Oh my gosh, Raya, I don't even. So Raya and I knew each other before we knew each other, right?
Yeah,
Like
which
I feel
is-
like
That's like a thing.
that's
that
a thing.
happens.
Yeah, that's a thing. Yeah, we met each other at a random gathering at UNH one time, a long time ago. Yeah,
Don't
that's
even
how I know.
remember
We've
that.
talked about this before, and neither of us really
I'm
remember.
glad you have more of a recollection than I do.
have a very vague remembrance of
Was
this.
it a party or was it an event?
I feel like it was a gathering. I'm
Okay.
trying to remember who was there. Maybe Shanti
Okay, probably
or someone,
like
and I think it was in Dover or something.
Oh, Dover.
Yeah, this
Got
is
you.
a very random memory that I have.
Cool.
And then I don't know how. And then after that, when I came back from Indonesia, I
Yeah.
hit you up, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we met at Laney and Lou. Shout out.
Yes.
Connections are made
Mhm.
there. We had coffee.
No, we did people at
And we
Portsmouth.
did a People of Portsmouth post, so you guys can hop over there and check that out.
We'll talk about that in a bit.
Yes.
And then we did that really freezing cold photo shoot
in the
at the
morning.
beach for sunrise.
So cold.
So cold. We literally.
Man,
I've seen
I
the
was
pic-
holding my camera like
Yeah.
a baby.
Yeah, we're like
I remember seeing that being
That was wicked cold, but so much fun.
so much fun. I was like,
And
who
we
will meet
just-
me for the sunrise?
No.
And we didn't even know each other.
Yeah.
I just reached out to you because I was starting my business and I
know.
just moved back.
And
I was
what's cool, Michaela, is I just feel like our paths are so linear from each other. You're probably, I like to say, 1 year behind, not in any sort of other way than just the fact that you started your business about a year later than I did. So it's really fun watching as you're going through all of these things, and I am too, and just seeing so many similarities, and also where you're gonna the heights you're gonna get to. It's gonna be incredible. So
Yeah.
it's so cool.
It's so funny. Every business struggle or exciting thing that happens in my business, I'll go to Raya and be like, so what's your advice on this? She's like, I was there exactly 1 year ago
It's
to the
true.
date. It's so crazy.
true.
You've been such an inspiration and a good role model to have in this community.
Thank you, love.
So we're so
Thank
excited
you.
to have you.
I'm so proud of you guys. This is an amazing thing you're launching that I think people are really hungry for, and I'm so excited to be part of the very beginning of it.
Yeah,
Oh
that's
my gosh,
So
we literally
cool.
can't think of a better person.
Yeah.
To
It just came up. Well, I think let's talk
Well,
about
I
that
also
process.
bombarded your email 20 minutes after you guys announced you were doing
very
it.
efficient.
So,
Super efficient.
social media world. So me and Michaela were kind of putting together, who we gonna pick first. And I'm gonna be honest, my first thought was it's gotta be Raya. And then we're Michaela's well, let's send out some emails and
I don't
see
really like her that
who
much.
responds first. Lightning, 3 seconds later is November 12th, I'm there.
It was meant to be.
Well,
Yeah.
we have a winner.
Yeah.
I love it.
So here we are.
Here we are.
So let's get started in getting you guys to know a little bit more about Raya. So we're going to do her little intro here, tell you a little bit about who she is, what she does, and then we will get into the fun. So Raya Al-Hashmi is a 27-year-old business owner living in Northampton, New Hampshire. Her personal and business brand photography company, Raya on Assignment, is based in Portsmouth, New Hampshire, where she has served hundreds of brands. Raya was born on the West Coast, lived in the Middle East as well as England before landing on the seacoast, and she's lived here since, making it her home now.
She sounds cool.
Yeah. Pretty well traveled human being.
I feel like me on paper is a little bit cooler than me in real life.
Yeah.
I'm born in Portland, Oregon.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's why we read these things and we build it up. But so Raya, to start, what I really something that I think a lot of people go through, I know this has been for me, is like I went through life like what do I like? Like what is my thing? What am I gonna do? Like that proverbial question that just stumps a lot of us. And you know, obviously you've come onto the game with this photography, this love and passion for it. I mean, I saw you out with Kate and Keith Photography, just shooting because you love it.
Yeah.
And I mean that's infectious. Your smile's infectious. Your energy's infectious. So I want you to talk about with the people, like, how was that born? Like, did you pick a camera up when you were 2 years old, or like where was that born?
Such a good question. Thank you for asking. Yeah, so I'll take you guys back. So again, like Sean mentioned, my upbringing, I lived on 3 different continents before the age of 8 years old. And I think that has a lot to do with who I am now. There's obviously a lot of negatives that happen when you move that much when you're a kid and you grow up without your dad. And you struggle with the sense of home and identity and everything like this. But on the flip side, there's a lot of positives, like, you know, you get exposed to cultures and people, and you're kind of okay with the idea of home being in many places. So I think with that, love for journalism was sparked. And when I say that, I mean a love for getting to understand people's stories, who they are, why they're doing what they're doing. And so I then studied journalism at the University of New Hampshire. And to backtrack a little bit, in high school is when I first picked up a real camera through one of my best friends, Shelby Phoenix, little shout out. She let me borrow her Nikon camera, and I, you know, really from that moment, I knew that was going to be an important part of my life. I wasn't sure in what capacity, I just knew it was. And I think once we touch, you know, upon the thing that is going to make a change in our life, we get that little message, and we don't need to know how it's going to or when it's going to or to what capacity, but just to pay attention when we hit that touch point. So yeah, so I studied journalism in college, and throughout that whole time I was honing in on my craft and just trying to get better and better, and getting inspired by the folks that were doing it and making it. And then I decided to leave my job almost 3 years ago and make this happen for real.
That's awesome.
Does that answer your question?
It does.
Okay.
And I got 2 more that I'm going to ask to tag off of that. So I know you initially kind of started this project, People of Portsmouth, and I feel like that's where you were like you were almost like practicing a business without it being a business. So do you want to kind of talk a little bit about how that played a big role? And it seems like, in my judgment of watching your journey, like that was a big piece of you kind of getting the courage to take that leap.
Huge.
So let's talk about that.
Yeah, you hit it right on the nail. Like that was me forming this foundation and networking without even knowing what I was doing or meaning to. And that was simply because I was listening to the pings, right? I was seeing what feels good and just following that, and not being concerned with, how am I going to start a photography business? No, that wasn't even on my radar. It's like, what am I going to do to help me get better at what I love? And that's what I encourage people all the time when they're starting out. Find a passion project. Find what it is you love and start a project around that. And don't have it tied to money. Don't have it tied to any sort of bigger agenda than basically what it is. And be consistent about it. Go out every single day and work on your project. And when you do that, there's no way that you aren't going to have that turn into something great. So basically I was working behind the front desk at a gym, getting paid $8.50 an hour after college, like barely able to make rent. And I was loving this Humans of New York that I was seeing pop up on my feed. And I liked it because I could relate to the people. It was something that was vulnerable, that was real, that would always make me cry when I would read the posts. And so I thought, I want to start something like that. And I didn't think, oh, I can't because he did, right? I said, I can do this. I'm going to take that blueprint and I'm going to transfer it into something that makes sense for me and bring it to my community. So every day after the gym, I drove to Portsmouth. I was living here in Dover, and I didn't leave until I interviewed 3 people. And I posted 3 interviews a day. And I went up to people I didn't know. That was one of my kind of rules around the project when I started. It was to go up to people I had no idea who they were and go, hey, I'm Raya. I'm starting this project. It's called People of Portsmouth. I would love to interview you. And I got people that would just look at me and say, absolutely not, or be wicked confused, or, you know, how much does this cost? You know, I would get the whole thing. But that was the foundation for me to just get the courage to simply connect with people that we, you know, that can be really hard for some people. It was difficult for me, absolutely. But after almost 400 interviews, you get better at doing that. Yeah. So the interview would be anywhere from 10 minutes to an hour. And now luckily I get paid to do that. I get paid to interview people basically and take their photo. So the project has slightly taken a back seat. I'm excited to focus a little more energy on it next year. But if that's probably a big takeaway I want to leave the viewers with today. If you're kind of in that place of, I want to do this thing for real, start a project that's going to get you known for that. It's going to get you better at that. And it's going to build this amazing foundation for you without you even meaning to.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So I think you said something really important that a lot of people can relate to, and that was with creating the People of Portsmouth, kind of based around Humans of New York, and not being afraid to do something that in a way has already been done.
Yes.
And that relates to me a lot too, because I remember meeting with you and being like, hey, I'm going to start this photography business, but also like, I just want you to know I'm not trying to like step on your toes at all. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think so many people do have this fear of stepping into starting X business or starting this project because they think it's already been done, or they think there's too many people, or the market's saturated.
Yes.
What advice would you have for people who have that fear?
It's a great question. So guys, simply by being who you are is going to, on a very basic level, make what you're doing absolutely, completely, 100% different than what's been done, simply by who you are. Especially if you are going to remain authentic to how you show up, who you are, what you're bringing to the table. There's no way. It's silly of us to think, actually, that when we are trying to do something that already exists, that it's going to be the same. There's no way. And I think it does the world a disservice when we say that, because there are so many things that have been created as inspiration off of other things that simply just wouldn't be here if that person didn't take the step and say, hey, but I'm bringing a whole different angle to this. I'm bringing a different lens to this. And it's a ripple effect, and that's how the dominoes are created upon that initial project that has been done. And also, the other point I want to just touch upon is your mindset around it, right? The market's too saturated. There's no way I can create a business around photography, etc. And just really questioning, like, is that true? Is that statement true? How do you know it's true? And then really like allowing yourself to kind of like uncover and realize, oh, it's because my dad one time told me that I have to be a doctor, a lawyer, or a professor. Or, you know, I read in a statistic that 87% of photography businesses fail. So I'm obviously in that percent.
Yeah.
So look at your mindset and see, where is that limiting you? Where is that blocking you? And is it even true? And I'd like to say it's probably not. We're wrong like most of the time.
Yeah.
When
pretty much 95%.
Yep. Exactly. Well, I think that's cool too, like, because I want to kind of transition off of what you just said. You've been reading a book by, I'm not
Elizabeth
sure.
Gilbert.
Elizabeth
Big
Gilbert.
Magic.
Remember the
Go
one?
get it right now.
I've seen you post about it.
I remember you did a circle one morning on the part where it talked about how she's explaining how just following your love and your passion, right? And I think it taps into like the things that feel good.
Yeah.
And they're not always making you $1 bazillion at first. Like you were doing People of Portsmouth, right?
Yeah.
And then like
I was losing money.
Yeah,
in that
exactly.
process.
Like, you know, like we're doing this.
Yeah.
Like it's what fuels us. And you know, Ray is a great example because I remember I was really inspired by this post you made like last year when you were like, hey, I just paid off all my student loans. And it's like, that started with People of Portsmouth, you know, so this is kind of the whole inspiration of this podcast, guys, is like, chase your passions. Like, yes, I understand in the physical plane, we're in the reality, like, yes, you need to make money. That's important. Figure that out, but do the passion projects.
Right.
Like, chase
your
dreams.
I didn't leave my job at the gym and just say, oh, I'm just gonna like do people of course. No, I like made huge sacrifices, and that's another point that I've been talking about that I would love to just touch upon.
Go for it.
Please.
Like, so yeah, it's like you said, Sean, we're not saying, yeah, chase your passions and like forget everything else. Like, no, 0%. Like, yeah, we have real world responsibilities and you know, some people have families. Like, also, like, to be fully transparent, like my worst case scenario is pretty low for like my business not working. Like, okay, I would just sleep on a friend's couch, like not a big deal. I get it. Some people have like very real other responsibilities financially that they need to be, you know, responsible for. So with all of that said, keep doing what you're doing, but like look at where you are spending your time and spending your money and like sharing your time with. Who are those people? And like realize if you want to make room for what it is you love, there is not like space for everything to coexist. You have to give up some of the things that aren't serving you. And I completely changed my entire lifestyle when I started my company, and it was incredibly challenging. And I like had some hard conversations with people, and I had to feel things I've never had to feel in my whole life, right? But the flip side is now I get to do what I love all the time, and I didn't think that was possible.
Yeah, and I think that's beautiful too, and like maybe like we can all relate to this, and I kind of want to just bring this up, is like when you're starting a business, right? At least in my eyes, I tend to be a very high energy. I would lean more towards the anxious future type guy, always trying to do a lot of different things. And I remember I started my landscaping business when I was 22, worked 80 hours a week, ran myself into the ground, and I still have to kind of, you know, you got to work hard, but you got to like kind of protect that and like have the balance. But it's like I had this thought again in here, I had to test it. Not really true. So just giving you guys that is that like I got to do more instead of the way you look at it. And I really appreciate this point of view is, well, actually you can probably stay doing what you're doing and maybe like add a few things, but it's more about what are you willing to take away? What are you willing to sacrifice? Because a lot of times 100%. like I'll just, if you don't mind bringing this up, is like I know you said you haven't drank in 2 years. And like you used to drink, and I remember your post recently about I used to get so excited this time of year when this beer was released, and it's like, think of how much energy and excitement, like now you're excited about like, oh, I have this dope shooter, I'm doing this dope workshop, you know? So it's just about those small sacrifices. What are you willing to strip away to try and find out what is underneath the veil of like your business or your passion project or whatever that may be.
Yeah, which, you guys, that is so exciting to know, like, that we don't need to search and gather other things that are outside of us to make what it is we want come true. Like, it's truly about, like, questioning your beliefs, looking at what you believe to be true, and taking away the things that aren't serving you. And, I mean, that's pretty amazing because that doesn't take any money to do. It just takes, like, some, like, serious self-reflection and space and
I think off of that too, like you said, it doesn't take any money to really let go of things, and in a way too, you're probably saving money. Like I can relate. I remember when I was living out in Colorado, I did quite a bit of traveling, and I remember I had a travel blog, and a lot of people would send me messages and be like, I don't understand how you're doing this, like what I just don't understand. I'd be like, okay, well, like, so I made a blog post about it, and it was like simple things that you could do on a weekly or daily basis. Like, okay, don't buy that $5 like latte at Starbucks every day, and then add up how much money that is, and before you know it, you're at $300, and that's a plane ticket, you know?
Absolutely.
So I think that's a really good point to be made. And off of that, if you're open to talking about it, like what was kind of like the emotional roller coaster like of letting go of various things in your life, and how did that kind of impact you emotionally, spiritually? Like, what was that like?
Heavy question.
Sorry.
No, it's good. It's good. I could just talk forever, so I want to see how I want to like approach it, so I can.
Sure.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, so I would say, you know, I have a definite past of a lot of mental illness, a lot of let me grab some coffee here.
Yeah, girl. You need some water?
We have coffee. Do we have more coffee?
So we have more coffee.
I can get on the making.
We can
of
make
more.
that happen. Let's make that happen.
No, so I do. I have a
Should I make
pretty.
that happen?
Oh, thanks. You gotta share.
That's what friends are for.
So when you look at a situation like that where you have been to some pretty low of lows, for me it's like, what is the what's the worst case scenario? I can continue to like operate from this standpoint and work at a job that's not super fulfilling and live by societal norms that aren't like life giving to me. Or I can change everything that I've ever been doing and see if like that's a better result. So like a small example is when I finished middle school, I could go to the regular high school and have kind of the same experience, which wasn't great, or I could try a different school that was more art and technology and project based. And so I did that, and there was risk in that. There was risk that it wouldn't be a great school, and I would then go back to the regular high school. But that there was the lesson in that I learned when I was about 16 was that, okay, if it doesn't work, you can always go back to what it is you were doing before. So that's kind of the way I viewed when I was leaving the hotel, was that, okay, if this doesn't work, this photography business doesn't work, I can just go and work in hospitality again. And getting off track.
Okay.
No, you're good.
Am I good?
You're good. Yeah.
Okay.
We got you. Yeah, it makes sense. You're making sense.
So I guess the point is like, I think as humans, like mental illness is something like I think we all experience. I don't know if people will disagree with that, but I just think as humans, like what separates us from like animals most, except for I think like dolphins or whatever, is that we have like we have emotions and we feel. Yeah. And so with that, it can come like really, really hard times and a lot of suffering. And so like, I just think to take away a little bit of the stigma too, and like just admit like we all have had like hard times in our lives, and it's our responsibility, like it's our personal responsibility to take action when we are going through things that are hard and seek help. And lean on our friends, or go to a professional who have like studied many years in a university to be able to help us navigate through this. Like there's a reason why those professions exist. And I think it's easy for us to just say, oh, like I have depression, so I'm going to take this and I'm going to not change any part of my like physical reality. And just like, I'm going to, I'm a victim. And totally, like I say this with like a lot of love, and this is a hard conversation because it's just a hard conversation. That's why a lot of us don't have it, but that's why this like stigma around it perpetuates. It's because it's like we don't want to talk about it. But so like I could stay at that hotel and like be depressed and like take X, Y, and Z medications, and like I could just say, well, that's just my life, and I had a hard upbringing, so I get to be like this. Or I could say, no, I'm going to stop drinking. I'm going to stop using drugs. I'm going to stop hanging out with these people. I'm going to follow what it is I love. And I'm going to see if that works. I'm going to see if that makes me a happier person.
My heart is like exploding that you just said all of this, and I'm sure Sean's
yeah,
is too.
Yeah, so thank you for sharing.
Like,
that.
thank you.
It takes a lot of courage.
That is
and
so
this
vulnerable.
is for all of you out here. So we're going to throw some quick stats in there for you. So in 2018, 50 million adult Americans, that's 1 in 5 of you viewers, will experience some form of mental illness, and then there's this is a 2016 stat. I apologize, I don't have the 2018, but 45,000 suicides in the US. And part of that is the silence. People are dying because of silence. Yeah. And I'll jump in with my story here. So I experienced a ton of depression throughout my 20s. And, what made it difficult is I thought I was alone, and I had this vision of who I was, which was this high energy, like hard worker, blah, 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 blah. And then all of a sudden you can't get out of bed. You're like, whoa, I don't like this guy. Who the heck else is going to like this guy? You know what I mean? So it's about realizing you can change, because I think within the depression story, there's this helplessness, right? Like I can't do anything, so why try? But I think it's like once I started reaching out to this beautiful community, mostly Portsmouth centered, these two included. I'm going to do a shout out to AJ and Kadi. You guys were awesome in that journey for me. you know, just getting that support and giving yourself a chance to build on that and realize, like, I remember these people kept showing up and I'm like, I don't get this. Like, wait, you want to hang out? Like, dude, I'm depressed. And they're just like, so? Like, we still love you. Like, still come do things, still talk. And I think that's important to get that support as you're going, whether you're an entrepreneur, whether you're going through mental illness, whatever it is, just get that support. Be vulnerable. Like, it's okay. Like, I'm still here, guys. I'm still alive. I told people I have depression and I have beautiful relationships because I was willing to say, like, this is the real me. And I'm, you know, now I'm using that to help inspire people. And I think you're doing the same thing. So I think what I'd like to pop into now is, because it kind of ties into that piece of your story, is let's talk about that initial leap. Like when you've done this build up with people at Portsmouth, like getting the courage. And then I think based on what I understand, please correct me if I'm wrong, is like you were experiencing like some depression and some tough emotions when you were in your job that wasn't really fulfilling. And it was kind of like, obviously this like break point. So I want to talk to people, because we all get there, right? Like, if you haven't felt it, you know, you're probably going to feel it at some point. I mean, I'm not God over here, but it's just part of the human evolution is that we feel that push and pull.
I think it's such a healthy sign too, like when we feel. Yeah. I mean, that's a sign that you're alive and that you are not, you know, numbing your experience, which is like a great sign, and that's hard.
Yeah, absolutely. So what I want to have you do is just talk to people about like the emotions you were feeling in that time. Like, you know, what was like the ultimate driver or motivator? Like, was there a person that pushed you, or was it like your emotions that just said, I can't I can't stick in this anymore. I got to take a risk. Like the courage it took to do that, the spears you had, like talk people through the emotions, like kind of like just a little bit of how that happened. Yeah. Because like, that's what I want these people to know is like, we've all been there. It's not like Raya just like probably confidently walked out and was like, I'm going to blow. I mean, you have to like build that belief, but you know, there was probably a lot of fear and other emotions. So like, I want these people to know about it. And then like, you're just a human and like, you had to take that leap, and like, it's a leap we all have to take. So tell them about that.
Yeah. So it's funny because sometimes like the catalyst, the thing that changes everything for us can be the simplest of things. But I like to say it happens at the exact right time, at the exact right place, and it's the exact right person. So just like a side note, right? When someone hits like a rock bottom and then they end up not changing, you're like, but you were there, like that was your rock bottom. Like, why didn't you change because of that? Well, they're just not done in that arena. They're not done playing there. So another point is like, there's so many times in my life where like huge things have happened and it was based off of like one sentence someone said or one small experience. So with the transition of really like deciding to leave one super safe job and you know, start this company, was one email. This one lady, she emailed me. She said, hey, I live in Seattle. I'm coming to visit my family in February. I just had my first baby. I really would love to do some photos of her. I'm only going to be here from February 12th to the 14th. Is there any way we could make that happen? And I was working in hospitality. I was working weekends. There was no way that could happen if I was still at my job. But it was it was right. So it's so funny. And I'm going to be seeing her again shortly, and I'm going to tell her, because I don't even think she knows the impact. Awesome. And that's another like I'll stay with me, you guys. This is another offshoot of like, when we act and we show up, like we have no idea sometimes the impact we are making on other people. So like, continue to do that next right thing. Okay, back to the story. So
good point.
Yes. So I saw that email, and there was something so like I could not ignore inside me that said, I am not saying no to that email, because there were so many other emails before that one that I had to say no to. Say, no, sorry, I can't shoot, even though, you know, that is the thing I want to be doing. And no, I can't. Why? Like, that job would have paid me the same amount as me working 5 days at this hotel, right? So like, that email came in and there's just no way that I was saying no. So I said yes. I said, yes, absolutely. I'm free that whole weekend. Yes. What day, what time, I'm there. Let's lock it in. Send over the invoice, right? Now, I had picked a date. And that's another big thing, guys. Like, pick a date. So that came in November of 2015. I left my job in February 2016. So I had like 4 months or so of prepping. And that's what I did. I started to like really kick it into high gear of how, you know, the things I was going to eliminate to make room for this, the things I was going to sacrifice. How was I going to save as much money as I could before leaving? All of these things. And so it really was just like an email. Obviously, we could talk for many hours, like all the other parts of that. But to just give you like, you know, the actual thing.
No, that's the catalyst.
Email.
It really is.
Yeah.
Everyone has their own catalyst for sure. And I think that's so special. And like you said in the beginning, you kind of just like know when you know. Like you have that feeling.
Like with your competition recently, like you were like, you knew you were going to, and then you figure out the hows and you deal with the fear later. But it's just kind of like, yes, you make sign me up.
Yep.
I can't believe I just said that, but yes, sign me up.
Sign me up.
Yeah.
Well, I think off of that too, something that you talk about a lot is your genius and kind of like knowing what your genius is. And I do remember you talking in the past about kind of like leaving your role at the hotel, which you knew wasn't the right spot for you. And you know that what you do now is your genius. And in a way, you opened up a free space for somebody to step into maybe what their genius is. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Absolutely. So guys, we all have like a space in this world. So like people who love numbers and stuff like this, right? Like they love the role of accounting maybe. And so to like fully know, like be cool with the things you don't love, because know that there's other people that are fitting that role like absolutely perfect. They love it. They're so good at it, right? And they want that role. And so when you're in that role and you feel like there's resistance and you don't like it and you're not good at it, like you're not only, you know, is that not fun for you, but you're taking a space of someone else that's like meant to be there. So remove yourself out of it and find your, like, where your little puzzle piece fits. And it's, oh, actually, I really love teaching art. Why was I freaking in accounting? Well, because of all the other reasons why, and that are not true. And then here I get to go into teaching art now, and I freaking love it, and I'm so good at it. So like back to the idea of genius, we all are born with like innate skills and passions and things we are attracted to. And there's things that we, again, on the flip side, that we're not attracted to and we don't love and we're not drawn to. And to know that like that's okay. It doesn't make us not smart, right? And I think it's unfortunate, but in school systems, we learn that idea of, oh, there's the genius kids, the two kids, and they're in our class and these are their names, and you just know them because they're really good at math and science and reading.
I think there's a good quote from Albert Einstein that like covers this so well. Like if you tell a fish to try and climb a tree, it's gonna feel like it's a moron. But if you put a fish in a fishbowl, it's gonna dominate that water. So
that's such a good
I think like I look at that in like our schooling system, because you just touched on that. It's like, you know, we all have our genius, and like not everyone's just like read a piece of paper and take a test and do well. Like there's so many different ways. Like genius is a subjective term. Like you can have genius in so many different things, and I think a lot of times like maybe you didn't do good in school, so you just like create again this story like I'm not smart, where you might be like a technical genius, you might be a great artist, you might be a great athlete, you might you might be a mechanic. There's genius in so many different ways, and like it's part of like our ego concept is to create these like constructs to help us understand who we are. But I personally have been taking this stance of like Eckhart Tolle says, just say I am with nothing behind it, because there's no limits. Like there's no limits to what you can do. And like, yes, you're going to be drawn to certain things, and follow that, because that's like where your heart is leading you. And that's where you're going to find these passion projects. That's where you're going to find the business. That's where you're going to find the podcast that hopefully changes the world. You know, like that's how we discover these things. And it's just this beautiful process, and it takes a lot of courage and faith and leaps. But, you know, honor the fact that like maybe you haven't found that yet. It doesn't mean it doesn't exist. Like keep trying. The thing is, like the way I look at quitting, right? Like I used to think like, oh, I stopped my business, like I'm a quitter, blah, blah, blah. I create all these stories, but I'm still going. I still kept trying things. Like there's no, like the only way you quit is if you don't, like you fall and you don't get back up. So just keep getting back up, keep trying things, take opportunities, don't say no, figure it out. And you know, magic happens. That's how like every single one of us here has gone here, is just taking those leaps of faith. Now, Michaela wants to say something.
I do, I really do. I'm
Yeah.
sorry, I'm
No, it's okay.
I'm
No,
getting
it's
antsy
great.
over
Yeah,
here.
that's great.
Well, I was just gonna say off of that too. It's like it's okay if you feel like you haven't found that whatever your genius is, because I think too when you do find it, that everything else feels like it starts to come into place, and like it just starts to make a lot of sense. And I know we talk a lot about how like amazing our community is, and like I know for me, I've lived in various different communities, and as much as I've like either loved where I've been, like loved my life there, like I've never super like felt at like peace and like I was like around like my people, and kind of until I like kind of stepped into my business. And I feel like as soon as you really do start to step into what it is you're supposed to be doing and what really like fuels you, then you start connecting with the people like you guys who are like on the same page as you, and who fuel themselves in the same kind of way, and then everything just starts, it's like puzzle pieces that just kind of start falling into place. And I don't know if you can relate to that at all.
Totally. Yeah. So something else I want to bring is like that question can feel heavy, like, or the answer to that question of I don't know what I want to do. So instead of focusing on that, it's let's reverse engineer and let's just start to do the things that feel good in our life. And I think that's something, like, there's no real excuse to not being able to do that. Like when you wake up in the morning, you have all the choices in the world. So if you just keep acting in the way of doing what feels good, you are going to then find that answer. I didn't sit there at 16 and say, oh, I have no idea what, my passion is, I'm good at what I'm going to do in the world. I just found a camera. And again, I knew this was going to be important to me. And so that was like the start of it. I didn't, say this is my passion. It found me, but it's because, right, I'm listening to it and being open. I'm following what it is that feels good. And that is something that we all can do.
Sometimes you don't even know, like in the moment, sometimes it takes you 5 years to realize like, oh, there's a reason that I did that one thing. Or like for me, it's like a blog post. Like there's a reason I posted that X blog post 5 years ago. And now like 5 years later, I'm realizing like why it resonated and the impact it's having in your life. So it's also okay if you don't know in the moment, just like you said, keep doing.
Yeah.
Well, I think there's like, so I went to this conference in New Orleans earlier this year, and there was this man talked about a way of reframing this question, because 50 years ago there weren't as many options as there are now, right? Like it was pretty more clear cut, like I'm gonna choose like the trades or this or this or this or this, and it was pretty defined, like the paths you could go. Now we live in a world where, I mean, there's just, if you ask this simple question of what do I want to do, there's a list of 5 million things you can do. So no wonder it's overwhelming. So it's like reframing that question to what challenges do I want to solve in our world? And like, hey, I mean, I'm sure you all watch the news or social media. We got a lot of challenges to figure out. And I mean, I think that's why I'm here, right? I'm an inspirational speaker because I battled depression, and I know what it's like to sit on your couch and not be able to make breakfast and feel like a complete, I'm just going to say it, loser. That's how I felt. That's tough. And I know what it's like to feel that pain. And my work is centered around, I want to help inspire people that is a challenge you may face, but it doesn't define who you are. Like I battled depression, but now I'm here, and it's just because I took those small steps that didn't feel like they were going to amount to anything, but they build up, you get momentum, you get confidence, the puzzle pieces fall in place, you meet the right people, you start believing in yourself, and it just all builds from there. So I think that's just an important thing to understand, is maybe sometimes it's just a reframe of a question, a reframe of a perspective to help get you back on track.
I have an interesting question that just came up from that. I think a lot of times what we do, especially as entrepreneurs, is our business, or even if it's just like a passion project or a creative project, is a direct result of kind of what we've been through in our life. Kind of like you speaking is a direct result of what you've gone through in your life. Can you maybe think of, like, you're a brand photographer, like what was, I mean, you're much more than that, but like what can you maybe sum up, like why do you think you ended up there based on like your own personal experiences? Do you know what I mean?
Totally. Yes. Yeah, that's a really good
like
question.
Because it's a direct result maybe of like what you've been through in your life. Like,
because I needed me when I was starting out, and I think we hear that like often the work we do is what we needed at a certain point. So when I was starting out my company, like, my friends were not super excited about this idea of me quitting my job. My family was not super excited. There was a lot of me that wasn't like super like 100% sure about this whole thing. So, you know, to have things in place when you start a business that are like solid, that are proof, that are like, look, no, it's a thing. Like, look, I have a website and like these are photos and this shows what I do. That can be like huge when you're at this point where nothing feels like it's in place, where everything feels uncertain and really like mushy and like putty. I like to think about like that's how it feels. So like when you can have things like photos to help demonstrate and share with your friends and family and just the community in the world, here's who I am, here's what I do, this is what it feels like, that can be huge. So that's, I mean, I'm so passionate about one, solving that anxiety for people, but two, through my messaging and social media, it's like showing people that it's possible. Like you can like use what it is that you're good at and create a lucrative business around that. So that's why I'm so attracted to the branding work. But just as a side note, for people who are entering into something where there's like different areas of expertise and specialties, pretty much any industry, right? There's going to be the offshoots of like what you're really, really like experting in. Just following like, again, what shoots like did I leave and feel really good about? Where did I feel most joy? Where did I get energy from rather than energy away? So like when I did weddings, I didn't like necessarily leave and was like, yeah, that's amazing. But like some of my brand shoots, I leave with that energy. So paying attention, how do you feel when you're shooting? How is the outcome? Where are your images strongest? And you can take those words of photography and images and replace that any of the words that for your industry. And it's really just like paying attention.
I love that. So this is gonna branch us right into our next question here. So talking about those ideas, can you kind of talk to people about that evolution? So where you started, like, you know, day one when this woman reached out to you with an email, and like how your business has evolved, because I know that you very intentionally pay attention to those feelings.
Yeah.
So where did it start? You know, like, and you're on year 3 going into 4?
Going into year 3.
Okay, going into year 3.
February.
So maybe talk people through it just in a general broad sense of like year one, what did that look like? How did that evolve? Year 2, because I know you're constantly taking a step back and be like, how's this going? Where do I want to go?
Yes.
So just talk people through that evolution, and maybe even talk about, I'd love to know your why. Like, what's your why? Like that thing that keeps you going when maybe like you're not feeling great, or like, because I'm sure you probably still have those days where like you don't wake up and it's rainbows and ponies, you know?
Yesterday.
So like,
Let's talk about yesterday.
So talk people through that, and then maybe talk people about that why, because I think that is super important, because we, you know, entrepreneurship, life, there's this roller coaster, right? And it's like, you know, sometimes you're high, it's great, sometimes it crashes, but like what keeps you going when it maybe crashes?
Yeah, great point. So if we go back to like, why did I really choose to leave my job and start this? And that's something I encourage people to do, is like their foundational values, the things that don't change no matter what, the things that are so important to you that's going to drive you through these really low points. So for me, I wanted a life that was healthy, that I had time to sleep as much as I needed, that I had time to have daily movement if I desired that, that I had time to attend community events that were important to me. So there's a few others, but like foundational values. And those are the ones that you're going to keep coming back to as your business evolves, because at every point your business grows, there's going to be new sets of circumstances and decisions and all of these things. So you basically just go back to your values again. And I'm struggling with this right now because the amount of work that I'm doing is way more than I've worked at the hotel, or way more than I've worked at any other job. And so am I really living true to those values that I set into place right now? No. And with that said, I understand there are phases in businesses where there's gonna be more output than is sustainable, and sometimes you just like, that's the reality. And I'm kind of battling and working through that right now. But so those are my main foundations. And I had more to say.
No, you want to talk us talk them through the evolution of like year 1, year 2, and where you're at now, and like how, you know, you've maybe done X shoots and felt like drained, and then you discovered extras to make you feel energized, and how you try and follow that energized.
So as I was starting, I was like, I need literally any job ever. Like, I just need to pay rent this month.
Yeah.
And that's a reality. So I was taking all the jobs, any of the jobs, and I think that's normal. And that's, I think, how you figure out what it is that you are really, really good at, what you love. It's, again, what you are getting more attracted to in your work. So I was shooting everything, and about 6 months after I had left my job, that is when the wheel started to finally turn. Up until that point, it was like prayer. Like, I don't know. I'm a stubborn person. Like, I'm super stubborn. So that, I think, was the thing that kept me through those 6 months. Because if I wasn't, I would have probably, and I have a lot of pride. So if I wasn't stubborn, I didn't have a lot of pride, I would probably have said, you know what, I don't think that worked out. I'm just going to do something else. But I'm so stubborn, and I have a lot of pride that there was no way in hell that I wasn't going to let this work. And I just had, I didn't want to go back to where I was. And that's the reality. Like, I would rather be where I was and not be sure if I was going to make rent every month than be at a job that was like stable, that I was like mediocrely happy in this one life we have. Yeah. So 6 months goes, and that's when I got a contract with an international big company that has a name that people know. And so it was when that happened that I like called my mom, and I was like, it's gonna work. It's gonna work. And that's, sometimes all it takes is like that one client where you're like, all right, I'm in. And not to say things got easy, like, it was absolutely a struggle moving forward, but I would say like that 6 month mark, that's when I could like take a full deep breath again. And so I kept doing, and that client was actually, really the epitome of the work I love. So that's also another interesting point is, my biggest client and the one that meant a lot in that moment is also the type of work that I'm doing, all the time now. And so the rest of the year finished off, and it was like, all right, I'm kind of still struggling, but I'm getting my name out there. It's working. Year 2 is when I really could start to strategically, look at what I was shooting and where I could maybe say no to. So then I started cutting back on some of the shoots that weren't really in my jam. Like weddings, I retired after this season, so I'm excited because you know what? That's Michaela's jam. She's really good at those. So now I get to tell people, here, check her website out for your next wedding. And that's the puzzle piece point I want to come back to. It's like, me doing weddings that I wasn't necessarily great at, I didn't love, I was taking away from people who, like, that fills them up. So when we always act with like integrity and intention and do what's right for us, it is in turn creating a better world for everyone else, and it allows them to live in their zones of genius. So I stopped doing weddings, I stopped doing, newborn shoots, et cetera, et cetera. And that's where the abundance comes in, because I get to then hone in like at the work I really love, and I get to become really good at it and known for it. And when that happens, it's like the people just come to you. I'm not at all anymore reaching out to people, cold emailing, trying to get clients. It's like I just sit there and the emails come in. But like that was hard work, and that was saying no to the things that weren't serving me.
I love that. So I'm going to do 2 things real quick right now. First of all, I want to ask if anybody out there has any questions for Raya, just to get that out there now so you can throw them in while we're still talking. And second, off of that, so throughout the last 2.5 years, you have probably experienced a lot of feelings of like, yeah, this is success. Like, this is what it feels like. Yeah. So as you keep progressing forward and going to the future, like what does success look like and feel like to you?
It's a good point. I struggled a lot with that and self-worth when I left my job, because now I didn't have a job title, I didn't have a place of employment, I didn't have a paycheck. So I sat there, I thought, who am I? What am I? Am I of worth? Do I even need anything? Like I really felt like I wasn't sure if I mattered anymore. And that's something like some people, you just don't question, because throughout your whole life you have a place, you have a title, you have a position, etc. So I encourage people to, if they're not in that transition, like, just remember, without any of that, guys, you are whole. You are of worth. You are successful just simply by being you. When you wake up in the morning, like, you've made it. You're here.
Another day.
Another day. Okay? So for me, I had to realize that no matter what, no matter the amount of money in my bank account, no matter what my website looked like, no matter what my parents thought, I was successful. So this has been a fun, theme to kind of explore as I'm going. And that's a much more interesting way for me to look at success. Like, how am I being a productive member of my community? How am I serving people? How am I showing up, rather than, I think, the really generic, boring way that we view success of, like, what does your house look like? Do you have a ring on your finger? How many kids do you have? What's your house size? Yeah. It's like, guys, we can get more creative. Like, yes, those are like amazing accomplishments and take incredible hard work and dedication. But when we are like on our way out to what's ever next and what happens after this physical life, those are the things that define our success.
Yeah. And I think, so the thing I want to talk about too is, like, guys, success is a very, like, subjective point of reference, right? Success, like, we have, like you said, a very societal definition of, like, what success is, but I want people to understand that, like, success is what you want it to be. That's what's beautiful about being an individual, and it can look so many different ways, and it's just about learning, I think, follow those things that feel good and defining it for yourself. And I talk to a lot of people, and I was just talking to someone last night, and it's like, they can tell you what they don't want. AJ.
She's so smart.
But it's hard to describe what you want, So I think you kind of covered what it looks like. So for me, I want to get even more detailed and challenge you to say, what does successfully showing up for your community look like? What does, I forget the other one that you mentioned, but what does, like, that success, like, if you show up as your best self, doing your best work, what does that kind of look like?
It looks like taking the very best care of myself. 100%. It goes back to, like, what were those very foundational values that I set when I left my job? Like, am I living a healthy life? Am I getting enough sleep? Am I getting daily movement? Am I keeping up with my relationships? Am I attending events that are meaningful to me? So for me, taking care of myself in the very best way is how I'm going to be my very best for everyone around me. Like, again, we have this idea that self-care is selfish, or is we could always be doing better things. Yes, you could always be answering emails. They're always going to come in. So to really look at, like, what are the things that actually matter? It's not that you have 0 emails in your inbox, or you've responded to all your DMs, or that you have finished all of your galleries, or you have you folded your laundry. It is like, what are the things that are going to keep me feeling my very best, keep me feeling human? Because I think sometimes too, we get so far off track because, like, our bodies can take a lot of hits. So we're like, well, we can just keep going off of 4 hours of sleep, or drinking every night, or eat, whatever it may be. Yeah, because our bodies are, like, amazing. They're trying to keep up with us all the time. So if we could have a little self-compassion, self-care, and do the things that, like, are just really life-giving to ourselves, we are going to show up like 110% to our community. We are going to be, like, beaming light everywhere. We're going to be doing our best work. We're going to be making more money. It's just like all the good things happen when we just, like, take care of this beautiful vessel that we're given.
Oh, I love that so much. You can't pour from an empty pitcher.
No, and I mean, that's where resentment comes in. That's where that's where a lot of negative emotions will come into play, even if you're doing what you love. I've had points being a full-time photographer where I've shown up really not excited that I was there, simply because on reflection, I realized, well, of course I'm not, because I'm overextended and I didn't charge enough for that shoot. And so here I am, being upset at the whole world, when, like, guys, that is all things I could have controlled.
Yeah.
Personal responsibility in how we show up.
Absolutely. What are 3 tips that you have for people? Like self-care tips.
Self-care tips.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
So I can't ignore, like, right, like, looking at the things you're adding into your life that aren't necessary. And that's a hard one. That might even be all 3 for some people. There was a point where I, like, like going back to drinking, I was like, no, this is just a part of my life. Like, I love drinking. Like, I love it. It was my best friend. And there was no way in hell I could see my life without that, even though not only was it taking up like the physical hours of drinking, but it was like my brain real estate of like, well, if I leave work at this time, what store is going to be open so I can still get my box of wine? Do I have enough money in my bank account? I can't probably go to yoga the next morning because I'm going to have a hangover. Like, the amount of physical time in reality, and then also brain real estate that one habit, that one routine I had was huge. That was dimming my light times like 10. So that's just one thing. And I'm saying this because like my relationship with drinking, like, again, best friend, for some people, they're just simply like a cool relative you see every once in a while, and it doesn't have the weight that it has for me. So I'm not trying to, hate on people who love their cocktail, celebrate,
Definitely.
But just personal for me. So looking at like almost it's the things that if you had to think like what are things you couldn't live without, some of those things on that list are probably things that are like preventing you from living your best life because of how much time weight you have to them.
I love that. I like that a lot.
I'll end on that. And
that was good.
Yeah.
That was
one
like
big one.
10 and 1.
Yeah, that's like 17 and 1. So I want to touch on, we're getting close to an hour, so we're going to try and wrap this up. But so I just want to say, in my experience, like, I want to talk about your relationship with Miles. Miles, you're coming in. So I just want to say, well, if you're sleeping, good for
and
you,
he'll be
Miles.
here one day.
Yeah, you'll be on
We'll
here
be here
soon.
next.
But I personally look at you guys, like, it's an inspiration to me because I think I personally, me only, guys, so like taking ownership of this.
Yeah.
I have this story of like being in a relationship slows you down, and I know that it's just a story because like I look at you guys are like the Jay-Z and Beyonce or whatever, and you guys are working alongside each other. You bring this insane light, like you did Wild Vibes this year together, and I think there's Seacoast on assignment. So maybe talk to people about how that relationship has fueled you, and like you don't have to get as detailed as you want, and maybe I also want to talk about the challenges because we both know it's not rainbows and ponies, so just kind of talk about
yesterday.
So we keep coming back to yesterday. Something happened. Do we need to talk about it?
So yeah, just kind of talk about that and how it's fueled and maybe some of the challenges you face, and you guys are doing great things.
Thank you, Sean. That's a good question. And to honor, like, congratulations for you knowing, like, that's just a story that you have regarding that. Because I also had the same story, 100%. So yeah, I started my company in February, reconnected with Miles in March. So that was 1 year into my business, and I was like 100% no, 100% no. And he had a partner at the time, and so that was like safe then because like okay, we could just hang out, but like he was taken, so like no worries. But as we know, like we don't always get to choose. And I truly like when I looked at my life at that point, I was like fully committed to like riding solo. Like that's just like what I was gonna do, and I was really excited about that because I didn't want to be held back. Like I wanted to rock what I was doing and not have any distractions or have any drama or like be with someone that like really wasn't great, which was like past relationships. You're just sometimes like with people because sometimes that feels better than not, even though it's just like band-aids over things that like are actually things you probably should deal with. So yeah, I met him, and we obviously like he's a videographer, I'm a photographer, so we have like that in common, and we are both sharing studio space, and we just kind of kept just getting to know each other. We did a lot of projects together. He was still dating someone, and then eventually they broke up. And so we were at this point of like,
coming in hot.
Did you scoop him up? Did you go on like attack? Like you're like a tigress? Like, get over here, you.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
Do I look like that?
Yeah, like, I feel like you would just be like, get your ass over here.
Okay, so this is what happened. They broke up, and we were at Wild Vibes. And it was the one at, it was the one at.
What year is this?
It was the one at Rye Harbor State Park.
So
2 years ago.
2016.
Okay,
yes.
Okay.
So again, I was like 5 months into my company, and And then he like started seeing this like other girl, like just like cash, and I was like,
We're getting all the deets.
Miles, my man.
Inside scoop.
So then I was like, well, obviously he's not into me because there was a space that we could have potentially connected, and then so we were wild about it. He's like, you know, we should like hang out sometime. And I was like, well, I don't know how your girl would feel about that. And so anyway, I don't know how exciting this all is, but
I like it.
let me think. So basically, then that thing ended with that girl, and then we started dating. But to get to the real point of that is that I really wasn't trying to call it in, and I was just dealing with a lot of things that I like didn't want anyone else to be there for. But honestly, and I guess you hear this a lot, like you don't get to choose sometimes when like your partner comes into your life. They're just like that. That's what happens. And it's been great. He's helped me, you know, work through a lot of, helped him grow his company, and now we get to do it together. And I think 2019, our goal is to really work more together and to just up level in what we're doing, and just take things to new heights, because, you know, as we all know, we're better together, right? We can accomplish more, we can be more, and like Into the Wild, that last sentiment was, happiness is only real when shared.
Yes, I love
Whether
that.
that's with your community or your friends or your partner, it's like truth.
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for sharing that.
Oh, thanks.
Thank you
That's
very
so
much.
fun.
And find them on Instagram, Seacoast on Assignment.
Seagulls on the side.
They're adorable. But so our Instagrams actually all ended because we've been talking for too long.
That's all right.
So we have
2 more things we want to ask?
Yeah, we're just about done.
Okay. So the next thing, Raya, is like, what should we be on the lookout for?
Oh, look out.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I kind of alluded to it. Next year, just Miles and I are trying to figure out how we can combine our businesses more, because often when people need brand photography, they need a brand video. So just how do we serve people greater and offer that more deliberately and more intentionally together, rather than you stumble upon me and then maybe later you stumble upon Miles. We just want to make it easy for people.
I love that.
So that, and then also carving out more space to getting back to my foundational values and why I started this in the first place, and just really looking at where am I spending my time and how can I reallocate that and come back to me a little bit more.
Okay, awesome. And I'm just going to do a plug for you here.
Yeah.
Raya, this upcoming Friday, folks, will be speaking at Impact Series at 3S Art Space in Portsmouth, New Hampshire. At what time, Raya?
So doors open at 7 and it starts at 7:30. There are only a handful of tickets left. Jennifer has had to keep on changing our floor plan to allow more seats, because
she's so good.
The initial ticket count was for much less, but they were just keep getting sold out. So guys, there are really just a handful left, and we've had to like take out some of the cocktail tables just to really fill the room. So we're planning for 200 people.
That's amazing. Yeah, and all of us will be there.
It's so cool. We're so excited. Yeah,
can't wait to support you.
Thank you so much, love. This has been helpful, just like warming me up.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, but I'm gonna be dropping some real talk, things I did not share on here. So you guys better, if you want
she's
to
just warming you up. She's warming you guys up.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I love
It's gonna be so good.
Oh, well, this has been so great. We just have one final question.
Yeah.
So the title of this podcast, as you all know, is Wild Hearts. Wild Hearts. Can you make the heart again? You want to make a heart?
Wait, how do we? Background heart.
3D heart.
I'm not doing that anymore. That was the last time we did that.
All right, so that's not working. Cut that.
Wait, like this, Michaela.
Over Sean?
Yeah.
Does not look like a heart at all, but you guys
okay, never again, guys.
No, cut. Okay, so for us, that kind of means just like really living your like authentic, like intuitive lifestyle, kind of not losing track of the heart that's behind what you do, and really like living what you naturally are supposed to be doing. And I think obviously you so clearly are doing that. So for you, what does having a wild heart mean?
Oh wow, that's so good. I love how you just described your intention for this. Yeah, like truly honoring the fear that just comes up in any greatness, and with that, like taking it along, be like, all right, buckle up, fear. going out. Because it's cool. Like, you don't need to ignore the fear that exists in a lot of great adventures. That's a sign of excitement, and that you're doing something that's brave and amazing, and nothing great happens without like a place of probable fear and anxiety and stress. And so I like to say, like, you're gathering the gold when you're in that cave of like, this is really hard, and then you get to go out and use that. So I think that was,
I love that.
yeah.
Cool.
Well, I think we want to end by like thanking you guys. So first of all, Rhea, thank you for your time. Thank you for joining us tomorrow. Thank you for going on this like adventure. It wasn't a train wreck, so that's good. We're all like figuring it out as we go. So I really appreciate your time. And I also want to thank my partner in crime, Michaela. When we started this, she like created a Gmail account and sent out emails in like 30 seconds, and I was like, wait, what's going on? And I was trying to keep up. So yeah, she's, can I say that on here? I'm gonna say so she takes care of business, very action-oriented human being. So I really appreciate all that you do, and like, you know, just being my partner in crime and helping get this out here. So
thank you too.
Thank you. Yeah.
This.
And then last thing, I want to make this interactive. If there's any of you still on here after an hour and 6 minutes, want to get some feedback. Like, so if you guys are on here, you know, was this too long? I mean, I know everyone's like out there living their lives, probably not going to view it for an hour. So would you guys like to see it 45 minutes? Is an hour okay? Is there any other like questions you'd like to like kind of hear in future, what's the word? Future podcasteries or other.
Well, and these are gonna be like, so well, first of all, Rhea, can you tell everyone where they can find you?
Oh yeah, please hop over to rayonassignment.com or on Facebook, Ray on Assignment, and I have a super great group called Behind the Assignment where we chat all about this stuff. And then on Instagram, Ray on Assignment, all of my handles, Ray on Assignment.
Perfect, and we'll tag you.
Yeah.
But also, like, we do want this, as we're going forward, the podcast part of it is like I don't know what I'm saying. I was gonna say this is gonna be like a recording, so if you want to like listen to it in their car, like whatever, like it's great to have like an hour if you're like on a car ride.
And just so you guys know, after this is done, we have our first like intro one on my website. I'll be popping this video onto my website under the Wild Heart tab. That website is www.togetherwerisespeaking.com, so you can check that out. We're working on the technicalities where we can get this on audio, so hopefully you can like listen to it on your way to work or what have you, and you guys will have full access to these upright.
Yeah, and that's why Sean's so great, because while I was making a Gmail account, he was like uploading stuff to his website. You guys
are such a good team.
Boom.
Look at that.
Yeah.
Let's not do this one again either. All right, I think we got to go now.
Anyway, thank you guys very much for your time. Everyone get out there, kick some ass today, and we'll see you
Happy Monday!
Yay!
Happy. Sweet, today's Monday.
I know, I forget to all the time.
I think
all right, all the
have
love.
a good day. Bye!
Bye!
Oh, that was so
I have a missed call. What?
End your video before I'm still talking. Whatever, that was so